and being obedient. So that's what I'm here today to do as we open up the discussion again on recitals. Now, for many people, when you think about recitals, automatically you could go into cold sweats and absolutely dread it. I know personally I would get very, very nervous when I was young about recitals, and actually that continued into my adulthood. I've always been somebody who's been very, very afraid. As I've shared before, coming to music was a lot about facing my fears of even having people's attention on me. But in particular, when I was young, I played a lot of, classical piano pieces, and the fear of making a mistake at a recital was so real that I wouldn't even be able to sleep. And even worse was the idea that you'd make a mistake and then not be able to continue, right? And I really don't ever remember making a mistake. I just remember the anxiety beforehand. And so it's been part of what I really enjoyed as a music teacher is working with students on recitals, because it's a character builder. It really, truly is a character builder. So when you're dealing with getting up there to perform, whether you feel like you're a natural musician or not, one of the things that's often said is that one performance can be equal to like 100 hours of practice. And I will attest to that. There's something strange with the way that the mind works and how you get to a place of familiarity with the song where it feels second nature. And in many instances, you can be practicing and practicing and practicing a song for years, but you get up and perform it one time, one or two times, maybe most, and maybe you don't even do a good job with it. Suddenly, it's on a different level. And I don't know how to describe that, but it's similar to when you've been playing a piece for 10 years, 20 years. There's a familiarity about it that absolutely feels wonderful and allows you to go to another level of expression with it. And whenever you're debuting a new piece, there's a little bit of a coldness about it, right? You feel not completely settled in. Like, one of the ways I could describe it is if you're in the woods and you're creating a path to walk in. When you're first walking that path, it's still pretty rough, right? But the years that pass that you're walking this path in the grass and through the trees, it's well worn and it's very comfortable at that point. And that to me is what practicing a song is like, or repeating a song. It's probably exactly like the synapses, the neural pathways that are being created in your brain as you repeat this song. And the more that those are well-worn pathways, the more that you can sort of let your spirit and your soul settle into the music and play from that place. This is one of the reasons why when you listen to jazz musicians play and they're playing from an improvised place, you have to keep in mind many of these musicians have been playing these songs for, I'm not even kidding, like at least 10 years, 20, 30, 40, especially nowadays. A lot of the jazz musicians that I hear out and about, not necessarily in New York or some of the thriving jazz scenes or in a jazz school per se, but when I'm like, say in just a town and I'm hearing live music, lately it's been a lot of older people. And I'm not talking DJs. I'm not even talking a mix of like backing tracks and DJs, although I see that too with older musicians. But a lot of time lately for me, it's been older musicians. So you got to keep in mind, a lot of times they're playing songs they've been playing for so long. And that's part of what you want when you're performing. You want to be able to play from a place that it's second nature to you, that it's easy to you. That's what's enjoyable to hear. But that's not actually the way that we work things in music schools, right? Oftentimes children are working on a piece maybe 3 months and then they get up and perform it. And so it's scary. And from every facet, it takes a lot of courage to step up and do this. Now, in the beginning, when children are younger, they're playing simpler pieces. But there's even a lot involved when a student is older and just starting music and still gets up there to play a piece. That takes a lot of courage as well, right? That takes a lot of humility. It takes the ability to know that you could make a mistake, right? And be able to pivot from that in the moment. It takes a lot of character development that, well, let me back up and just say the number one thing it does is build confidence, because no matter what happens up there, even if you get up there and you have the worst experience in the world, confidence is still built by this, I can assure you. Number one, just confidence in playing music itself. Because like I said, there's something that happens. You go to the next level. It's like, oh yeah, I've been there, I've played this piece. Even if you didn't play well, it doesn't even matter. It's the fact that you did it. It's the experience itself that creates a sense, like a building block in your confidence when it comes to music, when it comes to performing, when it comes to facing something scary. But then there is also a focus that you're working on. And this is something that's underrated today, is that so many people recognize that children's focus is being deteriorated, and that children just don't have the attention spans, none of us do, that we once did. And I'm not going to get into the rabbit hole of why, although I will strongly point to technology and phones as part of that. But it's been across the board, assault on our attention spans. But focus is a muscle, right? So when you're working as a musician, you need motivation at times to really dig in that focus. And what I have found is that working for recitals is truly one of the best ways to motivate students. Now, maybe they are just afraid to get up there and sound terrible, and I don't always love the idea of motivating from fear and shame. That's old school music, and actually there's still schools that do that, right? But I've find it much more challenging and much more rewarding to look for ways to motivate students that don't involve fear and shame, because ultimately that fear and shame will drive a wedge between them and their music. And I believe it's one of the reasons why many very young, accomplished musicians are never touching their instruments as adults, because that they have to face this fear and shame, right? That was used to get them to these uber levels. So you don't need the fear and shame, but you do at times need a motivation to make you dig in deeper, because your habits of focus are going to want to be like, oh, I'm just going to focus here for a few minutes and then I'm done. My mind's here, my mind's there, right?